We just got our hands on the Santos in titanium. This is my first impression of the watch, and I'm going to be comparing it with the steel version. So the first thing I'll say is that the new finish is way better in my opinion than the old finish of the Santos. Specifically, I really like the bead blasted finish on the titanium Santos versus the brushed and polished finish on the steel Santos. Before I bought the watch, I thought that the titanium Santos had a brush finish throughout, but that's actually not the case. Bead blasted isn't the same as a brush finish. Most people focus on the finishing of the bezel, from a highly polished one to a blasted finish, and while that's definitely one of the biggest and most significant changes given how much of a scratch magnet the polished bezel is, I think that just going from a brush to blasted finish across the entire watch is a huge win. The blasted finish in my opinion is even better than the brush finish because it gives a much more rugged vibe, and I get the sense that this can take a lot more beating than a brush finish can. On the steel Santos bracelet, even with the brush finish, it can still pick up marks and hairline scratches. But a blasted finish is much more durable and doesn't really scratch at all unless you hit it really hard against a sharp object. There's still a mix of high polished finish on the side bevels of the case, the crown, and the screws of the bracelet, which I really appreciate. I think it adds a little sophistication to the watch, and there's some light play when you're wearing this on the wrist, which adds to how dynamic the watch is. But at the same time, all the high contact points are blasted, so from a practical durability angle, it's still great. Now, just a quick aside on bead blasting. It's a finishing process where fine glass or ceramic beads are shot at the surface to create this smooth, matte, non-reflective texture. It removes minor imperfection and gives metal a uniform satin-like appearance. Here's something to take note of though. Unlike a brush finish, which can be done selectively on specific parts of the metal, if you ever want to refinish a bead blasted case like this, it will have to be redone for the entire case. Now going back to the Santos, something to also take note of is that the Grade 5 titanium has a slightly darker, grayer hue to it compared to the steel. Whether you like darker or brighter tone is purely subjective, but personally for me, I associate a brighter tone with a dressier watch and a darker tone with a sports watch. I think that the overall finishing of the titanium Santos De Cartier is perfect. It's a great balance between form and function. The overall muted tone helps the watch to fly under the radar, but you still have the polished aspects that gives it a quiet sophistication. I would even go so far as to say that if Cartier made all the Santos in this same blasted finish, I think sales for the Santos De Cartier would be much higher than it currently is. And then leave the polished bezels for the Santos Dumont, which is a much dressier watch. That will give further differentiation between the Santos De Cartier and the Santos Dumont collection. Now moving on, I think the second most important differentiating factor between the steel and the titanium Santos is really the weight. If you haven't handled a titanium integrated sports watch before, you might be in for a little bit of a shock. It's not really a good or bad thing per se, but it's just something that you might be surprised about the first time you handle a titanium watch with a bracelet. It's definitely something you have to get used to. Most of us would have experienced handling a steel integrated sports watch, especially if you're coming from Rolex. There's a certain heft to the watch because there's just so much metal. Not only do you have the case, the movement, but you also have now the entire bracelet and the clasp, and all of that really adds up. Now the thing is, when you handle a titanium integrated sports watch, immediately you will feel and notice the difference in weight. Because in your mind, you are expecting the weight of a steel watch, but the titanium version is just so different from what you expect. I think this becomes a problem because most of us also associate the value of the watch with the weight of the watch. Like, I paid so much for this watch, and if it doesn't feel substantial when I'm holding it, then it almost feels like I'm not getting my money's worth. Now, for example, when you compare a steel watch with a precious metal watch like gold or platinum, those are often quite a bit more expensive and even heavier than steel is. And these days, you even have brands like Italian Wind coming out with a sports watch that is made of full tantalum, including the bracelet. When compared to something like the titanium Santos, it's just night and day. So there's a little bit of cognitive dissonance. You ask yourself, why do you pay so much for something that just doesn't feel hefty? It's almost like you can't feel the value of what you bought, and because of that, it becomes less valuable, if that makes sense. Every time I handle a titanium sports watch, I'm amazed at how lightweight it is, and it reminds me of what exactly I'm wearing. I consciously think about the fact that this is a titanium watch and it is meant to be lightweight, and that makes me appreciate the watch even more. At the end of the day, this is very personal. Each of us would have different reaction to feeling the weightlessness of the titanium sports watch versus a steel sports watch. It's just something that you have to discover for yourself, whether you appreciate the lightweight nature of it or you don't. For me, I don't want to necessarily feel the heft of the watch on my wrist because I feel like it also affects the wearing experience. If the watch head is too heavy, it doesn't sit nicely on the wrist unless you tighten up the strap or bracelet significantly. And even better if the watch is lightweight, because when someone picks it up now, it becomes a bit of a if you know kind of situation. Maybe that's what quiet luxury is all about. So there's just a few other smaller differences that you have to consider. Firstly, in terms of the bracelet, the attachment of the bracelet to the case uses the same quick switch system that you've seen across all of the Santos. We've also tested our in-house developed D-lock adapter for the Santos, and it fits perfectly on the titanium case too. Now, interestingly, our titanium class in the gunmetal finish matches the bead-blasted finish of the Santos titanium perfectly. If you're looking to get a rubber strap for this, my recommendation would be to go with a black strap if you want something safe, grey if you want to match the hue of the titanium metal, navy if you want to match the hour and minute hands, or white if you just want a fun weekend strap option. I also want to take this chance to call out the nubuck alligator that comes with the titanium Santos. I think it's extremely cool that Cartier found an alligator finish that matches as closely as possible with the blasted aesthetic. And the clasp on this actually has the same blasted finishing, so kudos to them on that. But unfortunately for a watch as sporty as this, I'm probably never going to put it on the leather strap. A rubber strap included in the package would have been far more appropriate. Now, going back to the bracelet. The steel Santos actually has another technology in it, which is the Smart Link system. Basically, you can remove links from the bracelet without the need for any tools, which I think is super cool, and I think it's a feature that more brands should have. Now, on the titanium Santos, the Smart Link is not a feature that is seen on the bracelet. Instead, each link attaches via a traditional screw. It's a pity, but not a huge deal breaker, since most people aren't adding or removing links on a daily basis. If you buy this from a Cartier store like I did, they can help you to size the bracelet once, and you probably don't have to change it anymore after that. Of course, if you do find yourself wanting to add or remove links on the titanium Santos, you could always purchase tools like our strap multi-tool, which has a screwdriver included as one of the 4 tips. Now let's talk about the cost difference between the steel and titanium Santos. This is in November 2025, and here in Singapore, a steel Santos in large costs 11,900 Singapore dollars, while the titanium Santos costs $15,100. That makes the titanium version 25% more expensive than the steel version. Comparing to other brands, this price difference between the titanium and steel seems to be in line. I'm not going to try to answer the question of is it worth it to upgrade to the titanium version, because that's a highly personal choice. You have to try the watch on and see what you think about the difference in finishing and weight before making a decision. For me personally, I would definitely upgrade to the titanium version because I've been waiting for a Santos with this finishing for the longest time, and I really love titanium sports watches. It's no secret that we have quite a wide collection of Santos here at Deluxe because of the business that we are in and the need to showcase our straps on all these different models. But before this titanium Santos, the model that I've always gravitated to wearing is the one that I'm wearing now on my wrist, the ADLZ version, because I feel like that's the most practical finish for a watch that's as sporty as the Santos. The ADLC coating adds quite a bit of scratch resistance, so the watch can stand up to daily knocks without me worrying about leaving marks on this. But the problem with the ADLC Santos is that it just doesn't come on a metal bracelet version. So now that the titanium Santos is here, this will probably be my go-to sports watch whenever I want to wear a beater. I'll just end off by sharing what I experienced the day I got the watch. Now, this was the day that we hosted quite a few brands at our boutique for the Golden Hour Independent Series. Baltic, Christopher Ward, Dennison, Space One, they were all down, and we had quite a lot of people coming to the store that day. I was wearing the Titanium Santos because I had just picked it up that morning, but I wasn't really like showing it off to everyone deliberately. But what I was surprised by was just how many people recognized that this was the Titanium Santos when they saw it and not the steel version, probably because of the difference in finishing alone. I'm not really sure what to conclude from that except that the watch is noticeably different to others and that the Titanium Santos release is on top of mind for people even though the Santos as a collection is now 7 years old. So, if you're considering picking up the Titanium Santos, I hope this video was useful. Now if you have more questions, please leave a comment below and I'll get back to you. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching this video. Please remember to like and subscribe and I'll see you soon.